world never plays fair. No matter how honest you are, someone will betray you. No matter how skilled you become, someone less qualified will take your spot. That's reality. But those who understand this reality, they survive. And those who survive, they rule. This is a power you can't see, but everyone feels it. This is dark intelligence. Dark intelligence is born when people get betrayed, humiliated, and defeated. Others break down, but you build strength from that pain. It's the kind of intelligence that listens, watches, stays quiet, and strikes at the perfect moment. While others argue, you gather information. While they get angry, you calculate. While they drown in emotions, you plan the future. Most people play checkers. You're about to learn how to play chess. But before we dive deep, let me be crystal clear. This knowledge is for protection, not destruction. Use it to defend yourself, not to hurt innocent people. The goal is to understand the game, not to become the villain. Today, you'll discover the 8 psychological traits that separate survivors from victims, leaders from followers, winners from losers. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose to be strategically intelligent, not emotionally reactive. Now, let's unlock the secrets that powerful people don't want you to know. Number 1. Calculated opacity. You're never completely clear about your intentions. You show only what's necessary. When people know half the story, they fill in the blanks with their imagination. And that imagination, it controls them. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Think about the most intriguing people you know. They never tell you everything. They leave gaps in their stories. They answer questions with questions. They smile when you expect them to explain. This isn't about lying. This is about strategic communication. Here's what happens in most conversations. Someone asks you a question, and you feel obligated to give them a complete answer. You explain your motivations, your fears, your plans. You think you're being honest and building trust, but you're actually giving away your power. Smart people understand that mystery creates influence. When you don't reveal everything, people become curious. Curiosity leads to interest. Interest leads to respect, and respect leads to influence. Let's say someone asks about your weekend plans. Most people say, "Oh, I'm just staying home, maybe watching some movies." That's complete transparency, but it's also completely forgettable. Instead, you could say, "I have something important to take care of." Then change the subject. Notice the difference. The first answer makes you predictable. The second answer makes you interesting. This doesn't mean being rude or secretive about everything. It means being selective about what you share and when you share it. The most successful people in any field master this principle. They reveal just enough to keep people engaged, but never enough to lose their advantage. Your information is your currency. Don't spend it all at once. When you practice calculated opacity, people start paying more attention to what you say because they know you don't say everything. Your words carry more weight because they're rare. Remember, the goal isn't to be mysterious for the sake of being mysterious. The goal is to maintain control over your narrative and your relationships. Number 2, adaptive persona. You're not the same person with everyone. You adjust your personality based on who you're talking to. People think they know you, but they only know one version of you. Machiavelli once said, "A prince ought to take care that he never lets anything slip from his lips that is not replete with the 5 qualities mentioned above, that he may appear to him who sees and hears him altogether, merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious." This isn't about being fake. This is about being effective. You already do this naturally. You speak differently to your grandmother than you do to your friends. You act differently in a job interview than you do at a party. You present different aspects of your personality in different situations. Adaptive persona takes this natural tendency and makes it intentional. Every person you meet has different values, different communication styles, and different ways of processing information. If you use the same approach with everyone, you'll connect with some people and completely miss others. Smart people study the person they're talking to and adjust their communication accordingly. Are they analytical? Give them facts and data. Are they emotional? Connect with their feelings. Are they practical? Show them how something works. Are they big picture thinkers? Paint the vision. This isn't manipulation. This is communication intelligence. Think about water. Water takes the shape of whatever container it's in, but it never loses its essential properties. It's still water whether it's in a cup, a bottle, or a lake. Your adaptive persona works the same way. You adjust your presentation to fit the situation, but you never lose your core values and principles. The mistake most people make is thinking they need to be authentic in the same way with everyone. But authenticity doesn't mean being identical in every situation. It means being genuinely yourself, while adapting your expression to be most effective. When you master adaptive persona, you become someone who can connect with anyone. People feel understood when they're with you because you're speaking their language. This skill becomes incredibly powerful in negotiations, leadership situations, and building relationships. You're not trying to force people to understand you. You're making it easy for them to connect with you. But here's the warning. Never adapt so much that you lose yourself. Your values, your integrity, your core principles should never change. Only your presentation should adapt. The strongest people are like diamonds. They have many facets, but they're still one solid stone. Number 3, the principle of detachment. You're not a slave to any relationship, emotion, or opinion. What you're not afraid to lose can't control you. What can't bind you can't manipulate you either. Machiavelli once said, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." Detachment is probably the most misunderstood concept in dark intelligence. People think it means being cold or uncaring. It doesn't. It means being free. Most people are controlled by their attachments. They're afraid to lose their job, so they accept bad treatment. They're afraid to lose a relationship, so they compromise their values. They're afraid to lose approval, so they say what people want to hear instead of what needs to be said. Fear of loss makes you weak. Freedom from that fear makes you powerful. This doesn't mean you shouldn't care about anything. It means you shouldn't be desperate about anything. Imagine this. 2 people are negotiating a business deal. Person A really needs this deal to work out. They're counting on it. They've already made plans based on it happening. Person B would like the deal to work out, but they have other options. They're willing to walk away if the terms aren't right. Who do you think has more power in that negotiation? Person B, obviously, because they're not attached to the outcome. They can negotiate from strength. Detachment gives you clarity. When you're not emotionally invested in being right, you can see situations more clearly. When you're not desperate for approval, you can make better decisions. When you're not afraid of being alone, you can choose better relationships. The paradox is this: the less you need something, the more likely you are to get it. Think about confident people. They're not confident because everything always goes their way. They're confident because they know they'll be okay, even if things don't go their way. That's the power of detachment. Now, this doesn't mean being careless or indifferent. You should still work hard for your goals and care about the people in your life, but you should never be so attached to any outcome that you lose your ability to think clearly and act strategically. Detachment also protects you from manipulation. When someone tries to threaten you with taking away something you're not afraid to lose, their threat has no power. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who has nothing to lose. But the most powerful person in any room is the one who has everything to gain and nothing to fear. Practice this gradually. Start with small things. Don't be so attached to winning every argument. Don't be so attached to being liked by everyone. Don't be so attached to your plans working out exactly as you imagined. As you develop this skill, you'll notice something interesting. People start treating you with more respect. They sense that you can't be easily controlled, and that commands respect. Remember, detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring without being controlled by that care. Number 4, silent leverage. You don't apply pressure directly, you wait. When people make mistakes and become vulnerable, your silent presence becomes the heaviest influence in the room. Machiavelli once said, "Never was anything great achieved without danger." Most people think power is loud. They think it's about raising your voice, making demands, and forcing your will on others. That's amateur hour. Real power whispers. Silent leverage is the art of creating influence without saying a word. It's about positioning yourself so that your mere presence changes the dynamic of any situation. Here's how it works. Instead of telling people what to do, you create situations where they naturally want to do what benefits you. Instead of demanding respect, you make yourself indispensable. Instead of fighting for power, you make people give it to you willingly. Let's break this down with practical examples. In conversations, silent leverage means knowing when to pause. Most people are uncomfortable with silence, so they fill it with words. Often those words reveal more than they intended to share. When you're comfortable with silence, you control the rhythm of the conversation. Next time someone asks you a difficult question, don't answer immediately. Pause. Look at them thoughtfully. Let the silence stretch for a few seconds, then give your answer. Watch how it changes the weight of your response. In negotiations, silent leverage means having alternatives that you don't need to mention. When the other person knows you have options, they negotiate differently. You don't have to threaten to walk away. Your willingness to walk away is enough. In relationships, silent leverage means being the person who adds value without asking for recognition. When you consistently make other people's lives better, they naturally want to keep you around. You don't have to demand loyalty. You earn it through your actions. In professional settings, silent leverage means becoming the person everyone comes to for solutions. You don't announce that you're the problem solver. You just solve problems consistently until everyone knows they can count on you. The key to silent leverage is patience. You're not looking for immediate results. You're building long-term influence. Most people want instant gratification. They want to see immediate results from their efforts. But silent leverage works differently. You plant seeds and wait for them to grow. You make investments and wait for them to pay dividends. This requires a different mindset. You have to be comfortable with delayed gratification. You have to trust that your consistent actions will eventually create the influence you're seeking. What happens when you master silent leverage? People start coming to you for advice without you offering it. They start seeking your approval without you demanding it. They start following your lead without you asking them to. You become the quiet force that shapes outcomes without anyone realizing it's happening. But there's an important ethical consideration here. Silent leverage should never be used to manipulate people into doing things that harm them. The goal is to create win-win situations where everyone benefits. The most ethical use of silent leverage is to influence people toward better decisions for themselves and others. You're not tricking them. You're guiding them toward outcomes that serve everyone's best interests. Remember, silent leverage is not passive. You're still taking action. You're still making moves. You're just doing it quietly and strategically instead of loudly and obviously. Number 5. Psychological echo. You reflect people's deepest needs and fears back to them. They think you're speaking their language, but actually you're gaining understanding and influence. Machiavelli once said, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." Psychological echo is about becoming a mirror that reflects back what people need to see and hear. This isn't about deception. It's about deep understanding and strategic communication. People don't buy products, services, or ideas. They buy solutions to their problems and fulfillment of their desires. When you can identify and reflect back their real needs, you become incredibly valuable to them. Most people are terrible at this because they're too focused on what they want to say instead of what the other person needs to hear. Let me explain how psychological echo works in practice. First, you have to become a student of human nature. You need to understand that everyone you meet is carrying invisible burdens, secret desires, and unspoken fears. Your job is to listen for clues about what those might be. When someone talks about their work, they're not just sharing information. They're revealing how they see themselves, what they value, and what they're worried about. When someone talks about their relationships, they're showing you their emotional patterns and their deepest needs. Most people listen to respond. You need to listen to understand. Here's a practical framework. Every person you meet is asking 3 silent questions. Do you see me? Do you understand me? Do you value me? When you can answer yes to all 3 of those questions through your words and actions, you create a powerful connection. The psychological echo technique involves reflecting back not just what people say, but what they mean. You listen for the emotion behind the words, the need behind the complaint, the fear behind the anger. For example, if someone says, "I hate my job," most people might respond with advice about finding a new job. But if you listen deeper, you might hear that they actually feel unappreciated, unchallenged, or uncertain about their future. A psychological echo response might be, "It sounds like you're not feeling valued for your contributions," or "It seems like you're ready for something that challenges you more." Notice the difference. Instead of jumping to solutions, you're reflecting back their emotional experience. This makes people feel understood, which creates trust and influence. The key is to reflect back the positive version of what they're expressing. If someone is complaining about being overwhelmed, you might reflect back their dedication and high standards. If someone is expressing frustration about a situation, you might reflect back their desire for excellence. This technique works because people have a deep psychological need to feel understood. When you demonstrate that you truly see them, they automatically trust you more and value your opinions more highly. But here's where it gets really powerful. Once you understand someone's core needs and fears, you can position your ideas, suggestions, and requests in terms that naturally appeal to them. If someone values security, you present your ideas in terms of safety and stability. If someone values recognition, you present your ideas in terms of achievement and acknowledgement. If someone values freedom, you present your ideas in terms of independence and choice. You're not changing your message. You're changing how you present your message to match their psychological profile. This is incredibly powerful in leadership, sales, parenting, and relationships. When people feel like you understand them at a deep level, they naturally want to work with you, follow you, and support you. The ethical way to use psychological eco is to genuinely care about understanding people and helping them get what they need. When you use this technique to serve others' best interests, it becomes a tool for building stronger, more meaningful relationships. Number 6, ambiguous morality. You're neither good nor bad, you just get things done. Real power doesn't always come in black and white. Sometimes it lives in the gray areas. Machiavelli once said, "Since it is difficult to join them together, it is safer to be feared than to be loved when one of the two must be lacking." This is the most controversial trait of dark intelligence, and it's the one that gets misunderstood the most. So, let me be very clear about what this means and what it doesn't mean. Ambiguous morality doesn't mean having no morals. It doesn't mean doing whatever you want regardless of consequences. It doesn't mean hurting people to get ahead. What it means is understanding that the real world is complicated. Sometimes doing the right thing in the short term leads to worse outcomes in the long term. Sometimes being nice enables bad behavior. Sometimes protecting people requires making decisions that aren't pretty. Here's the reality. Pure moral clarity is a luxury that most people can't afford when they're dealing with complex situations involving real consequences. Let me give you some examples to illustrate this concept. Imagine you're in a leadership position, and you discover that a team member has been consistently lying to clients and damaging relationships. The nice thing to do might be to give them another chance, provide more training, and hope they improve. But what about the other team members who are working honestly? What about the clients who are being deceived? What about the long-term health of the organization? Someone with ambiguous morality might decide that protecting the many is more important than being nice to the one. They might make the difficult decision to remove that person from the team even though it feels harsh. This isn't cruelty. This is pragmatic ethics. For example, someone asks you for advice about a relationship that you can see is toxic and destructive. The kind thing to do might be to be supportive and avoid saying anything negative, but someone with ambiguous morality might decide that true kindness requires telling the difficult truth, even if it temporarily hurts the person's feelings. The key principle here is focusing on outcomes rather than appearances. Sometimes the action that looks good on the surface creates bad results. Sometimes the action that looks harsh on the surface creates better results for everyone involved. This requires a different kind of moral thinking. Instead of asking what action makes me look like a good person, you ask what action leads to the best outcomes for the most people. It also requires taking responsibility for the consequences of your decisions. even when those decisions are difficult or unpopular. But here's the crucial distinction. Ambiguous morality is not the same as selfishness. You're not doing whatever benefits you at others' expense. You're making pragmatic decisions that serve the greater good, even when those decisions are personally difficult. This trait also involves understanding that different situations require different responses. The same action that's wrong in one context might be necessary in another context. For example, being completely honest might be the right approach in a close personal relationship, but it might be counterproductive in certain professional negotiations where strategic disclosure is more effective. Someone with ambiguous morality understands these nuances and adapts their approach accordingly. The danger of this trait is that it can be used to justify selfish or harmful behavior. That's why it's crucial to maintain clear ethical guidelines about what you will and won't do, even in complex situations. My recommendation is to establish clear boundaries for yourself. What are your non-negotiable values? What lines will you never cross? What outcomes are you willing to accept responsibility for? Within those boundaries, give yourself permission to be pragmatic and strategic, even when it means making decisions that others might not understand or approve of. Remember, the goal is not to be liked by everyone. The goal is to be effective and ethical in a complex world where simple answers don't always work. Number 7. Controlled exposure. You don't reveal everything about yourself. The less people know, the more they assume, and assumptions lead to mistakes that make your strategy easier. Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful person will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived." In a world where people share every detail of their lives on social media, controlled exposure might seem outdated, but it's actually more powerful than ever. When everyone is oversharing, the person who shares strategically stands out. When everyone is broadcasting their thoughts and feelings, the person who keeps some mystery becomes intriguing. Controlled exposure is about being intentional with your personal information. It's about understanding that not everyone needs to know everything about you, and that selective sharing can actually strengthen your relationships and increase your influence. Let's start with the psychology behind this. Humans are naturally curious creatures. When we encounter something incomplete or mysterious, our brains automatically try to fill in the gaps. This is called the curiosity gap, and it's one of the most powerful psychological forces in human behavior. When you practice controlled exposure, you create curiosity gaps that make people more interested in you and more attentive to what you do share. Think about the most captivating people you know. They probably don't tell you everything. They share enough to keep you engaged, but they leave you wanting to know more. This isn't accidental, it's strategic. Now let's talk about practical applications in professional settings. Controlled exposure means being selective about which ideas you share and when you share them. It means not revealing all your capabilities at once. It means keeping some of your knowledge in reserve so you can provide value when it's most needed. For example, instead of showing all your skills in the first week of a new job, you might reveal them gradually over time. This creates the impression that you're continuously growing and improving, rather than someone who peaked early. In social situations, controlled exposure means not telling your entire life story to everyone you meet. It means sharing personal information gradually, as relationships develop and trust is earned. This doesn't mean being secretive or dishonest. It means being selective and strategic about what you reveal and to whom in negotiations. Controlled exposure means not revealing all your priorities and constraints up front. It means keeping some information in reserve so you can use it strategically as the negotiation develops. The key principle is this: information revealed can never be unrevealed. Once people know something about you, they can't unknow it. So, it's better to err on the side of revealing too little rather than too much. But controlled exposure goes beyond just withholding information. It's also about timing. The same piece of information can have completely different impacts depending on when it's revealed. For example, revealing a particular skill or achievement early in a relationship might seem like bragging, but revealing the same information later when it's relevant to solving a problem makes you seem humble and helpful. Controlled exposure also involves understanding your audience. Different people need to know different things about you. Your level of disclosure should match the relationship and the situation. Your closest friends and family members should know more about you than your casual acquaintances. Your business partners should know different things about you than your competitors. Your employees should know different things about you than your peers. This isn't about being fake or manipulative. It's about being appropriate and strategic with your personal information. Here's another important aspect. Controlled exposure includes managing your digital footprint. Everything you post online, every comment you make, every photo you share becomes part of your permanent record. People will form opinions about you based on this information, often without ever meeting you. Smart people are intentional about their online presence. They understand that their digital persona is part of their overall strategy for how they want to be perceived and remembered. The goal of controlled exposure is not to be mysterious for the sake of being mysterious. The goal is to maintain control over your narrative and your relationships. When you reveal information strategically, you can guide how people perceive you. You can emphasize the aspects of your personality and experience that are most relevant to your current goals. You can avoid being pigeonholed or stereotyped based on incomplete information. But here's the balance you need to maintain. You want to share enough to build genuine connections with people, but not so much that you lose your strategic advantage. The most successful people understand this balance. They're open and genuine in their relationships, but they're also strategic about how much they reveal and when they reveal it. Number 8, outcome obsession. You're not here to win arguments or prove points. You're here to get results. People who focus only on outcomes never waste time on unnecessary games. Machiavelli once said, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." This is the trait that separates amateurs from professionals, dreamers from achievers, and talkers from doers. Most people get distracted by things that don't matter. They want to be right more than they want to be effective. They want to look good more than they want to get results. They want to feel good about their process more than they want to achieve their goals. Outcome obsession cuts through all of that noise. When you're outcome obsessed, you ask different questions. Instead of how can I prove I'm right, you ask what result am I trying to achieve? Instead of how can I look good in this situation, you ask what actions will lead to the outcome I want. This shift in thinking changes everything. Let's start with arguments and disagreements. Most people approach arguments like they're trying to win a debate. They focus on proving their point, catching the other person in contradictions, and demonstrating their superior knowledge or logic. But outcome-obsessed people approach disagreements differently. They ask, what do I actually want to achieve from this conversation? Maybe they want to change the other person's behavior. Maybe they want to reach a compromise. Maybe they want to gather information about the other person's perspective. Once they're clear on their desired outcome, they choose their approach accordingly. Sometimes that means winning the argument, but often it means something completely different. For example, if your goal is to change someone's behavior, proving them wrong might actually backfire. People don't like being wrong, and they often become more stubborn when they feel attacked. A better approach might be to help them reach the right conclusion on their own. If your goal is to maintain a good relationship while addressing a problem, being right might be less important than finding a solution that everyone can accept. This applies to every area of life. In professional settings, outcome obsession means focusing on what actually moves the business forward, rather than what makes you look smart or important. It means choosing projects based on their impact, rather than their visibility. It means making decisions based on data and results, rather than politics and preferences. In personal relationships, outcome obsession means focusing on the health and happiness of the relationship rather than who's right or wrong in any particular disagreement. It means choosing your battles based on what actually matters rather than reacting to every minor irritation. In personal development, outcome obsession means measuring your progress by actual results rather than effort or intentions. It means being honest about what's working and what isn't, even when that's uncomfortable. Here's where outcome obsession gets really powerful. It helps you avoid the trap of looking busy without being productive. Many people confuse activity with achievement. They think that working hard automatically leads to good results. But outcome-obsessed people understand that you can work very hard on the wrong things and get nowhere. They're constantly asking, is this activity actually moving me toward my goal? Or am I just staying busy to avoid the more difficult but more important work? This leads to what I call strategic laziness. Outcome-obsessed people often appear to do less than others because they are selective about where they put their energy. They focus on the 20% of activities that produce 80% of the results. They're not trying to be the hardest worker. They're trying to be the most effective worker. This also applies to learning and skill development. Instead of trying to learn everything about everything, outcome-obsessed people focus on developing the specific skills that will have the biggest impact on their goals. They ask, what's the minimum I need to learn to achieve maximum results? This isn't about being lazy or taking shortcuts. It's about being strategic and efficient. Now here's an important warning about outcome obsession. It can become destructive if you lose sight of your values and relationships in pursuit of results. The healthiest approach is to be outcome-obsessed within ethical boundaries. Your desired outcomes should include maintaining your integrity, treating people well, and contributing positively to the world around you. When these values are built into your definition of success, outcome obsession becomes a powerful force for good. Another key aspect of outcome obsession is the willingness to change course when something isn't working. Most people get attached to their plans and strategies, even when those plans aren't producing results. Outcome-obsessed people are attached to their goals, not their methods. If one approach isn't working, they try a different approach. If one strategy isn't effective, they develop a new strategy. They're not stubborn about how they achieve their outcomes. They're only stubborn about achieving the outcomes themselves. This flexibility makes them incredibly adaptable and resilient. When circumstances change, they adjust their approach. When new information becomes available, they update their strategy. The ultimate goal of outcome obsession is to become someone who consistently gets things done, not someone who talks about getting things done, not someone who looks like they're getting things done, someone who actually produces results in the real world. This reputation becomes incredibly valuable over time. When people know you as someone who delivers on your commitments and achieves your goals, they start bringing you better opportunities, better partnerships, and better problems to solve. You've just learned the 8 traits of dark intelligence, but knowledge without application is worthless. Pick one trait that resonated with you the most. For the next 7 days, practice that trait in your daily interactions. Don't try to master all 8 at once. Focus on one. Notice how people respond to you differently. Notice how you feel when you approach situations with strategic intelligence instead of emotional reactivity. But remember what we talked about at the beginning. This power comes with responsibility. Use these insights to protect yourself, not to harm others. Use them to create better outcomes for everyone, not just for yourself. The world needs more strategically intelligent people who use their knowledge ethically. People who can see through manipulation and protect themselves and others from it. People who can navigate complex situations and find solutions that serve the greater good. That's the true purpose of dark intelligence. Not to become a manipulator, but to become someone who can't be manipulated. Not to gain power over others, but to gain power over yourself and your circumstances. The most dangerous person in any room is the one with nothing to lose. But the most valuable person in any room is the one who understands human psychology and uses that understanding to make everyone's life better. Which kind of person do you choose to be? If this video changed how you think about intelligence and power, hit that like button. If you want more content about psychology, strategy, and human behavior, subscribe and ring the notification bell. Drop a comment and let me know which of these 8 traits do you see in the most successful people around you, and which one are you going to practice first? Until next time, remember, true intelligence isn't just about being smart. It's about being wise enough to use your intelligence in service of something greater than yourself. Stay strategic, stay ethical, and stay powerful.